Hey guys, WhiskersTech. So I'd originally meant for this video to be about phone cameras and how they're basically good enough. And you can check out whiskerstech.tumblr.com if you're interested in that sort of thing. But my daily driver, which is recording right now, the iPhone 7, if you're wondering about the particular camera on any of these, if I edited it together well, it should say which of these three phones is in use right here in the bottom right corner. If I can't figure out how to do that, then you'll just have to use process of elimination. I tried to keep the other two phones in the shot at any given time. The iPhone 7 was, let's say, out of commission for a week. So I've been rocking this in one pocket and this in the other ever since. And, like, they've been fine, but you can definitely tell that the 5S came out in 2013. Ooh,
The first thing I noticed switching from my 7 to the 5S was the size of the on-screen buttons. The 7 actually has a whole nother row of apps, but since I don't use it, it wasn't really an issue. I'm used to bigger phones, not big enough to make my small hands look smaller than they are, but, you know, sizable. So I was a little disappointed at the difference, but within a few days it was totally fine.
Especially for people with smaller pockets, I can totally see the 5S being a perfect size. And I bet that's why they came out with the SE, which is basically a 5S, but with better internals. The next thing I noticed was the lack of 3D touch. Android users, and probably even some iOS users, might not know what that is. Basically, you can press harder into the screen sometimes to open more options. Not a super popular feature, but I'm also the kind of guy who opens links in new tabs using the middle click on a mouse, so I'm definitely the target audience here. I usually use 3D touch to open notifications so that I don't have to open my mail app to delete emails from Twitch or Twitter. The last few things have to do with the battery. Apple supports their iPhones for way longer than, I don't know, Samsung supports Galaxies. Shots fired! This makes them more secure, sure, but it also makes them less usable over time. For example, my 5S here gets super hot if I have too many apps open, or if I'm just watching YouTube. Oh, I was watching MKBHD this morning, right? And 40 minutes into that, my battery's down to 40%. Okay, whatever. Then I walk over to breakfast, and by the time I'm there, it's down to 20%. And then, in the time it takes me to walk to class, 2 hours, streaming music the whole time, battery's at 5%. Wild. Oh, and I don't really play a lot of games on my phone, but I did run some races in Maximum Car to see how it would hold up. And as best I could tell, it ran pretty much identically to how it did on my 7 or even my M9.
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's a car.
This is probably worth talking about, right? I use my HTC One M9 as a backup phone from time to time, and it's aged well. Not like fine wine, but definitely not like cheese either. It's still getting updates, and even though it's not as old as my 5S, it's more impressive, I think, because Androids don't usually get updates as frequently or as long-term as iPhones do. And it's gotten some cool new modern-y stuff, like a fresh UI, it can do split screen, and it even has the Google Assistant.
Play that hipster song.
Who's more than a little bit better than Siri.
Ouch.
Sorry, but the camera has especially not aged well. Not because the camera is super bad, but because the lens is. I don't know what it's made of, but Linus had a similar issue when he reviewed his, and even when he reviewed his M8. So I don't feel like this is an isolated issue with just my phone. Aside from that, the build quality is phenomenal. It's taken some pretty rough falls and got a number of dents and scratches, but it still works, and I think that's super impressive. So that's it. That's everything I have to say. Phones are pretty good. Like if you liked, dislike if you disliked. If your thoughts are more complicated than that, hit up the comment section, or if you just want to let me know what I did that was awful, you can also do that down there. And always use salt in your gaming. Later, guys.